we are making it very, very complex. Just focused on 2, 3, 4 things, nothing more than that. Asset allocation, most important. How much is in equities and how much is in debt will drive your returns. Okay. Second, invest for the long term, as long as you can. 3 years is short, 5 years is short, 7 years is short. Longer, the better. Invest during tough times. It is difficult to invest in tough times. It is easy to invest in good times. You try and follow the reverse of that, right? I think these 3 things are the most important. My view is the ideal holding horizon is indefinite, right? You hold until you need it. Why are we constantly buying and selling equities? You don't have a need for it. Do you have a house to buy? Do you have a wedding to finance? Do you have a holiday to finance? If those are being met from your regular income and from your regular savings, then don't touch your portfolio. Don't impact the tax structure. Keep it. Why should when we think of the insurance industry, they talk about investing for a lifetime. Why is it mutual funds that we are? I think the biggest mistake we have made is giving capital gains of 1 year as short term and longer than that as long term. We should think very, very long term. So we are fixated, we are becoming shorter and shorter and shorter in our time horizons, right? We've seen how options has exploded. Young people today are investing in hours and days and months, right? So we forget about years. But the true people, if you think about it, people who made serious money, right? Not people who made a little bit of money and then run away and so on, but people who made meaningful money, use that money to change their lifestyle, use that money to buy assets, meaningful assets. One thing is common in all of them, every single one of them. They have held on to equities for an extended period of time. There is nobody who said that I did equities, then I got out, I stayed out for 3 years, then I got back in, then I made a lot of money, then I got out, I didn't have equities, right? There are investors who said I stayed in. There were times my portfolio did very badly. There are times my portfolio did extremely well. I stuck through it thick and thin, and I did extremely well because I was a 25-year investor, right? We have to think in decades. We have to move away from, certainly months and days is ridiculous, but we have to move away from years. We have to think in decades. Invest for a lifetime. I've obviously invested significantly in HDFC mutual funds. I have not done a redemption except to meet requirements of liquidity ever. So I think we have, if you put the goalpost at 25 years, then people will start thinking 25, 10, 5, and so on. If you put the goalpost at 1 to 3 years, that's why I was hesitant earlier when I said short term is 1 to 3 years, medium term is 3 to 5 years, and long term is longer than that. Those are actually short time horizons, right? Long is 10, 15 years. That is a serious long-term investor. Medium-term investors are those who are investing for 5 to 10, and anything less than 5 years is short, right? So if you think of it that way, then the whole equation changes.
Adding to what Chirag said, Harsh, while fully endorsing his view, mathematically, we all know that equity is a compounding machine. And the benefit of that compounding comes later in life. So somebody can, all those people who are your PFPs are there on the call, start with 1 lakh rupee and see how it compounds. Suppose assuming it doubles every 5 years, mathematically, then you will see what happens after 20 years on your initial capital. So yeah, 1 will become 2, 2 will become 4, 4 will become 8, 8 will become 16. Then 16 becoming 32 is a real wealth creation at that point. But for that, you have to wait it out for those first. And Warren Buffett also says that he got more wealth after the age of 60 when he started investing at the age of 10 or 11, whatever it may be. So it's a indefinite period, but the compounding effect will come much later in life. But for that, you have to just wait it out. And that's where the real money gain. And that's where the example of our FlexiCap is there, which will be celebrating 30 years next January. And you can see for the record how it has created wealth for people who have stayed for a longer period of time. But now, at this NAV of 1700, in next 5 years, possibly it will double. It will become 3400 NAV. But then first 5, 10, 20 years, it did not happen that way. So now that addition at a later part of that, and therefore we always tell people to start early. Why start early? Because the compounding can take material effect at a later part in their career when they are about to retire. And that's where the real accrual of wealth also happens, and they can enjoy much better sunset life. So indefinite period is what Chirag fully endorsed.
Absolutely, sir. And when we see portfolios where the returns are 800, 900%, people who have held it over a longer period of time, they are not bothered about 10, 15% correction because it doesn't affect their lifestyle, even if there is a short-term correction for next 2 to 3 years. So my next question is about...
Let me add one more point to that because I think this is important. See, very often we make mistakes as investors, right? And those are two predominant mistakes. Well, actually, there are three mistakes in general. One is we get in at the wrong time, right? We get in when things are extremely expensive and therefore we start at a disadvantage. Or we get out at the wrong time, right? We sell when the market is very cheap. We sell out of distress, out of panic, and so on. So one, we buy at during euphoric times, so we get in during a bubble, or we get out during distress times. Now, and of course, the third and the biggest mistake is that we hold our stocks for a very short period of time. The fantastic thing about investing for the long term is even if you invest at the wrong time, even if you redeem at the wrong time, right? If you invest for a long enough period of time, it will take care of both those mistakes. Let me give you a specific example. If you look at the IT bubble, it was one of the biggest bubbles, along with Harshad Mehta and Ketan Parekh and so on, that we saw in India's stock market history, where valuations went to 100 Ps and 150 Ps and so on, and it was really a remarkable period. If you invested in IT companies at the peak of the bubble in 2000, and you invested and you remained invested till today, your return today would still be in the strong teens. So imagine you have bought at the worst of times, but because you held on. Now, if you held on for 5 years, it wouldn't have mattered. You would have had mediocre returns. But if you held on for 20 years, even the biggest of mistakes will get resolved. So don't worry. People are so focused about when to get in, when to get out. But most people are not focused on how long to stay in. If you stay for 20 years, you will take care of most mistakes. Let me give you another practical, real life example. It's a very long answer, but I think it's important. And this is it's a true story. My father was a investor in Hindustan Lever, and about 10 years ago, he sold Hindustan Lever, or he was in Hindustan Lever stock had fallen to 60, 70 rupees. There was a lot of concern on competition from regional players and so on. And it was a large part of his portfolio. And he'd call me every day, what should I do? What should I do? And there was a lot of stress because the stock had done very badly. And he kept calling day after day after day after day after day. And I kept telling him, hold on, hold on, hold on. And he, it was too much for him, right? He couldn't handle the stress and he sold. And after that, the stock went, 10 times, 15 times, right? So he was, obviously, you would imagine that he was upset. But what I reminded him, I said, you've sold not at the right time, you've sold at the wrong time. But his return, even after selling at the wrong time, was a fantastic return. And the reason for that was he was an IPO investor in Hindustan Lever. So he held on for 20 years. And despite selling at the wrong time, he still made a fantastic return because he held on for that long. So even if you sell at the wrong time, like the example I gave you right now of Hindustan Lever, or even if you buy at the wrong time, which is the example of the IT bubble that I gave you, but if you hold for an extended period of time, it washes away all your sins.